July 2024, I went to Dave Wescott's house in Idaho and talked to him. The man who runs Rabbitstick. He's been organizing people at the Rabbitstick Primitive Skills Gathering for nearly as long as I've been alive. He used to run Boulder Outdoor Survival School. I keep wanting to say Boulder Outdoor Survival Skills. Dave Wescott is a living legend. He's one of those old timers that brought the skills to the forefront. He's been organizing people. He's been writing stuff. He's currently writing for Backwoodsman magazine. He was putting this thing together with some people and editing it, The Bolton of Primitive Technologies. You might know his book, Camping in the Old Style. This thing is a gem. Look at all these pictures. Dave Wescott is a living legend. He's got a lot to share. He has a lot of dirt time. He's got a lot of experience. He knows a lot of great things. We're going to talk about some great things. Let's hear what he has to say.
What was your interest young and why'd you?
Just the outdoors in general.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I grew up in Northern California.
Yep.
So I was close to Ishi country, but at the time that name wasn't known. You know.
Oh, really?
But all of the stuff that was related to that topic were in my yard. I mean, there was beads everywhere, and there was artifacts everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, they were just right where I lived.
Out in Nevada City, Auburn?
I was in Auburn, yeah. So we were right up in the Sierra foothills, and so all that Maidu country was still right on the surface.
Yeah.
From when I grew up there. So that was in the 50s, and they were probably there living wild up until probably just 50 years before that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Ishi came out of the woods in like 1905 or something like that.
1914, I think, is when he came out.
Okay.
Somewhere in there, but the book wasn't published until early 70s, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, the story wasn't.
That's wild. You definitely can't find artifacts out there at all.
Yeah. But anyway, so all that stuff was right there. So that was always fascinating me. And then, so that and Walt Disney, with all of the Disney shows and stuff like that. So
like Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone,
yeah.
All of the TV shows of all the westerns. I was a big Cowboys and Indians guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just fell into this whole thing where I decided I wanted to be an Indian, and that's kind of what I pursued for 35 years. It was a passion. So
and you're just doing that for fun.
Mm-hmm. When I was 16, and two other guys and I took off and went across the United States, and we traveled all northern U.S. and southern Canada and hit the powwows up there. We were the only white guys
and you were welcome there.
Well, it was during the AIM days, so you're talking the 60s. It was dangerous. So you tried to stay with a crowd. You didn't go out in the parking lot by yourself at nighttime. Yeah.
That's crazy.
You'd get thumped.
Really?
Yeah. We got arrested. We came into Pine Ridge one night. We wanted to go to the trading post there, and it was late, so we just pulled over, slept in the car, and they came and hauled us off to jail.
No kidding.
Put us up for our own safety.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
They just said, we'd come by an hour later, you'd be dead.
Sure.
So we were just kids out having a good time.
Yeah.
So I pursued that for a long time, and got pretty serious about it for a few years, and got way into all kinds of stuff that didn't do me any good personally, but it was interesting. I met Steve. Okay. I met Steve and Holladay within a year of each other.
Before Larry?
No, after Larry. I had utmost respect for Larry. Larry was my guru. And I was criticized by my peers at BYU at the time because I followed him so closely. I was one of the few that followed him because he was kind of drifty.
They criticized him or criticized you?
Me for being so devoted to what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I was the skills guy.
Yeah.
I didn't have the credibility in the field, with 480 and the survival courses because those people were more interested in the people. I was more interested in the skills. Well, no, the skills were my ticket in.
Yeah.
So they've always been a part of me, just doing stuff. But I've never considered myself a master of anything. Mm-hmm. There are people that are heads and shoulders above me on everything.
Yeah.
Larry was the one who called it survival skills, primitive skills, survival skills. He was the one that conflated those two together.
Okay.
And for years, I could never figure that out.
Right.
I used to go to survival conferences where you'd have all these search and rescue guys, and they'd look at you and say, well, what in the world does napping an arrowhead have to do with search and rescue or survival? It has nothing to do with it. Well, in my mind, it has everything to do with it.
Sure.
Because if you understand those skills, the level of confidence you have is so much more elevated above the average Chichaco that's out there who panics at the slightest situation where they think they're out of control. That it changes you.
Yeah.
So your approach to the land and your relationship to the land is much more pure. And I think when you get in an emergency situation, it calms you down because that is one piece of the puzzle that you already have wired.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just got to deal with this other stuff. It's like we did an EMT, a woofer course once, and we had a Knowles guy come in and do the scenarios for us. So he said, okay, here's your final scenario. You got a person out here, broken leg, you got to deal with it, and you have no equipment. What are you going to do? And with their normal training, you've got people with backpacks full of crap.
Right.
With our training, we had a blanket pack and very
little
gloves.
in their pack.
So we pull out our bandanas, start cutting willows. I mean, we put on a hair traction splint with willows and bandanas, and the guy was blown away because there wasn't a single bit of hesitation on how to do it and how to use the elements that were there.
Okay.
Larry's whole thing was he never explained it. He just did it because he was kind of in the same boat as me. He had that fascination and didn't know why, I think. And just kind of adopted what we call now cultural appropriation.
Right.
You know? Adopted that idea because if you go back and you look at Ishii and you look at Larry's book, and the pictures are identical. Mm-hmm. Larry is doing Ishii pictures. Yeah. So kissing the back of his hand, pulling a bow, chopping a.
And he's learning this from who, or he's
learning it from. I think he did a lot of study with ethnographic stuff and just a lot of seat of your pants stuff.
Sure.
So if there was anybody who was self-taught, I think it was Larry. But then he had mentors like Don. He was around Don Crabtree, who was at the Harrod Museum then, I think, and then went over to ISU. And then that became the Museum of Southern Idaho. So he was connected with all those guys. So he had some pretty good mentors around.
And then how'd you make...
Gene Titmus and those guys were all master flint knappers. So
okay.
When I knew Larry, I kind of got an understanding of him when I went into his office one day and there was a juniper bark sandal on his desk.
Yeah.
And I said, "How did you make that?" And he said, "I just made it." And I said, "How did you make it?" He says, "You just make it." I said, "How did you make it?" He says, "You know, that was the best answer I could get from him."
Yeah.
He was
okay. Yeah, to show you.
So he never would show me how to do it. So I don't know if he ever made it. But Larry I'm a lot like Larry in as much as he was a great organizer.
Yeah.
He could assemble people and do some great stuff. He was a great idea man, terrible manager, in my opinion.
Sure.
But that, his strength was he was able to assemble people, assemble resources. I feel like I'm the same way. I met Holladay in 87, and he did his Stone Age Connection deal.
87.
And if you haven't ever seen it, I got a digital copy of it now.
Okay.
So one of the original ones. I got it. Matter of fact, sitting right in the front of the presentation is Cody Lundeen with shoes on.
Oh yeah, shoes on. Then pretty early, huh?
This is really early, yeah. So anyway, that cranked my head around.
Yeah.
And then I met Steve Watts that same year, and I didn't meet him, we just corresponded through the mail. Mike Ryan went to a workshop at Callahan's place in Virginia, and Steve was there. So Mike met Steve and brought a bunch of Steve's stuff back, his flyers and stuff like that. So we corresponded for a year, and then I just said, we need to get together. And I just said, if I put this thing on, will you come? He said, absolutely. So I did Rabbitstick the next year.
Yeah.
48 instructors from all over the country showed up.
That was 88.
Mm-hmm. So he was the one that did two major things. One was that the skills can't be just isolated. There has to be context to them. And if you haven't got the context, then it's just arts and crafts. That's the Steve quote. And that made perfect sense to me. The other is that this is a shared heritage. It's everybody's heritage. So you don't have to be an Indian in order to do this stuff. This is not Indian stuff. This is everybody's
stuff.
Comes
from every continent, every people.
And my comeback to anybody who criticizes that now is that that's the key to this whole thing. It's everybody's stuff, and it unites us. It shouldn't divide us.
Right.
You have a legitimate complaint if I come onto your turf and I start stealing your motifs. designs and stuff like that. Okay, I can understand that. But everybody made pottery, everybody made baskets, everybody cat hides, everybody worked with feathers, everybody painted their faces, everybody made drums. That's
if you go back far enough.
It's everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
So I have no fear or trepidation about using the word primitive technology. Because if somebody says, well, you're denigrating my people. No, I'm talking about my people. If I want to call them primitive, I'll call them primitive. This is my stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah. No, I've heard you talk about that before. I like that.
My job has been to give people a platform and let them do their thing. So when I'm a boss, I got the best teachers I could get, and I said, okay, here's the parameters. You got to work within what you do. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And we had a ball.
Yeah.
That was because I wasn't, they didn't have anybody looking over their shoulder.
Right.
I could trust them to do what needed to be done because they were the best.
Well, I think that's good management.
They were the best people at the time, and we just had a great time.
Yeah.
So.
And you ran Boss for like 15 years?
12 years, yeah.
When did you buy that?
85.
Okay.
Ran until 97. And I sold it in 97, which I may or may not should have done, but it was, writing was kind of on the wall for me.
Yeah. And then you went back, you came and did the program up here at BYU Idaho?
I came back up here, bought this place, and worked for just a couple of years on it, just kind of rehabbing everything in the buildings and getting it stabilized. And then they came and asked me if I wanted to come help them design a new program for business majors. And so I helped out with that. And that kind of worked me into a teaching position, so I just started teaching classes.
What were you doing for business?
It was called IBC, Integrated Business something or other. It was a semester program where they actually ran businesses. But they
did that when I was there.
Yeah, they're still doing it.
No wilderness component?
Well, the first it started out as a week in the Tetons.
Okay.
So they would take all the business majors out for a week in the Tetons and run them through like an outward bound course.
Yeah.
But then that was too much, and so they took them to Badger Creek for 3 days. So I came up and was in charge of that.
Okay. Yeah, I think they were just doing a weekend at Badger Creek or something when I was there.
So I was running that.
And then, so how many programs have you started at colleges?
So 3 programs. I started.
3 programs, and then, okay.
And then when I was outward bound, I was outward bound for a couple of years, and I helped them start their executive development programs that became really popular with them.
Okay.
I actually did the first desert programs that they did. So I took all their staff out and did trainings for them in the canyons and stuff.
In Southern Utah? I didn't know that. Where were they based out of?
Colorado.
Oh, really?
It was Colorado outward bound. Yeah, they paid for my master's degree.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's crazy that you did all that and still went into the field and stuff.
What do you mean?
Well, I just mean, getting a degree is hard enough, I think. The fact that you spent so much time
my degree was
all
practical hands-on. I mean, when I was at BYU, I was doing my degree at BYU, but I was in the field for 4 years.
Sure.
I ran their youth programs for 2 years, and then worked on the 480 30-day courses for 2 years.
Yeah.
So my whole program was practical. But the other thing too is it saved my academic life because, my first semester in college was in Hawaii, and I got a 0.5 GPA. I was a rec major. So I was failing, and none of the classes made any sense to me. I took bonehead English 3 times.
Yeah.
I was not motivated academically at all. But when I discovered the survival program, then my physics class was weather and climate and photography and all this, and geology. All those things had an application now, and I graduated with a 4.0. Wow. Just because now it had some application.
Yeah.
So everything I did pointed in that direction. It wasn't a distraction. So I didn't let education get in the way of my education.
Right.
So, yeah, it was great. I had a wonderful academic, and that's kind of why I worked so hard when I was in that position to offer programs to students. Is I gave them my best.
Yeah.
Paul kept after me because I would redesign my classes every semester. He says, "How can I do that?" I said, "I can't teach the same class twice." I'm excited about it. I don't know how these professors have been using the same notes and handouts for 40 years.
So that's a question I wanted to ask you, because you've been doing this since the 70s at least. So how have you kept things interesting? By just changing it?
I never teach anything the same way twice or well, it's like if I go to an event, another gathering, I always teach something new.
Right.
Because I get bored with it.
Well, yeah, it always surprises me what you come to the gatherings. You're always teaching something, bull roars this last time, and then
but you look at it in a different way.
Right.
It's not just.
Well, and that's why, like I could show someone how to just carve a stick and throw it in the air, but it's with the context.
You've got some people that are highly skilled, but there are so many events. These people are going everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're going to burn themselves out.
Right.
And the people that I started with were highly skilled and went to a few events because that's all that was available, and they managed to maintain their interest in it for decades. And until the day they died, they were still interested in it.
Yeah. And
so to me, that's the difference between the old timers approach and what I'm seeing today. Is that you see lots of people who come on, they burn bright, and then they're gone.
Right.
And I worry about that. They're coming in at a level that is so much higher than when I came in.
Yeah.
It's incredible what information is available for them to start at. And then they're taking it at a whole nother level, which I get jealous of because they can outdo anything I
they're they're standing on your guys' shoulders.
Oh yeah, their skill level is incredible.
Yeah. And
you don't even try to keep up. You just go ask them questions.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's a lot easier to share the information now.
Yeah.
You can get it by not coming to a gathering.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what the answer is. Yeah. I would just say pace yourself.
Yeah.
That and diversify. People that are specialists. Some get better at it, and some maintain, some stick with it. But for the most part, most people that I've seen that come here and really come on strong don't last.
Did you have a skill that you felt like proficient in, or was your passion or anything like that?
No, I mean the programs back then were focused on using skills to develop people, not necessarily using skills to become better technicians.
Yeah.
I was kind of always labeled as the skills guy because that was always my interest was the skills. You have a better chance of having impact on people if you're highly skilled rather than just out there just banging around, trying to impress people.
Yeah.
You know who the good skilled people are and how people flock around them and how they influence people just by the fact that they are competent. That competence instills confidence in people, I think. And so competence to me is important. This is like if I learn something new I'm going to teach at a gathering, I'll do it 20 times before I'll go up there and try to teach it.
Right.
Now you see people who see it on YouTube, may do it once, and then turn around and post a YouTube video. This is how I do it.
And you
this
don't
is
even
how
know,
I do it, guys. I've been doing this.
And you don't even know who they're learning it from.
No,
if it was even anybody that knew
they
it
stole
in
it
the
from
first
somebody
place.
else.
Right.
And so, to me, the whole field right now is awash in incompetence, and that just bugs the heck out of me.
I think these things. Why are primitive skills important? What's the point of knowing these old skills in a modern time?
A good question.
Yeah.
If you look at it from a standpoint of basic skill, I hate the word bushcraft today just because it's been so bastardized. Yeah. But if you look at the original definition of bushcraft, which comes from Ray Mears or Tim Smith, you're looking at skills that are from the land and skills that are informed by the land. And so if you're using those skills in an application on the land, then you cannot have but a closer relationship with the land.
Right.
Because of that. Now you've got people out there traipsing around with 80 pounds of petrochemical gear saying leave no trace, and they have no clue what's going on.
Right.
They don't know what flowers are passing by. They don't know anything about the geology. They know diddly squat. But it's a beautiful place to take a selfie. So that just irritates me to no end. And land managers love it because you got a bunch of stupid people out there who are easy to manage because they don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just take me to the prettiest place where everybody else goes and give me my ticket so I can stand in line to take my selfie. That's all I want. And it just drives me nuts. And then they come back to us and say, well, you can't go because you're doing something that's consumptive, and therefore you may cause some impact.
Right.
And therefore you can't go.
Right.
Where the depth of what we're teaching is so much more in line with what their mission statement should be, but they don't understand that.
Well, you guys said
when I took over Boss, the thing that the land manager told me when I walked into his office, and it stuck with me forever, is that those who best interpret the resource are going to be the people that we depend on.
Sure.
And that's what I did. And I got booted for it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, when Leave No Trace came on board, Knowles was doing it.
Yeah.
Came over and interviewed us and looked at our practices and stuff, and they even sent one of their people out on the trail with us, and they found, they found that we created no impact. The only thing that they could say negative about what we were doing at the time, and we were going out with 20 people then,
yeah,
big groups. Well, when it was BYU, we were going out with 40 in a group.
That's crazy.
And so the only impact they could show was that we did not change out of our trail shoes into sandals when we got into camp. So we were compacting the campground. You can't compact sand. I don't care who you are. You can't compact sand.
That's pretty wild that you guys didn't have an impact. I mean, there's definitely people that really hate on the skills and this thing because they think that they think if you use a plant, you're ruining it and everything.
Okay, look at that environment that we operated in. It's a willow cottonwood environment.
Yeah.
Right now, they say the willow cottonwood environments are the most endangered environments in ecosystems in the United States because they are riparian, and that's where all the golf courses and all the developments are building. So they're wiping these environments out. The other thing is if you don't interact with willow will climax.
Right.
And once it does that, then it's susceptible to invasive species.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got willow out there that you're not interacting with anymore. The cows used to eat it back.
Yep.
Then it would come up as a brand new shoot in the springtime, and it would all stay low. You'd have a nice controlled shrub. Then all of a sudden it maxes out, comes woody, dies, tamarisk comes in.
Yeah.
Then when does the BLM come in? They come in with
it down.
chainsaws and poison.
Right.
And tell you can't prune willow trees.
Yeah.
I
was part of that crew
it's
once.
nuts.
I got hired
It's
to do
completely
that.
nuts. And they don't understand their own mission. They don't understand science. They don't understand it. They don't understand ecology and the human part of it. The worst thing we ever did was write the Wilderness Act, where we legally said that it's a place where man is a visitor and does not dwell. We're the only culture in the world that's ever done that.
Yeah,
so.
That's interesting.
So
I mean, people were cutting willow, definitely. I mean, there's a lot less. I don't know, in California, I feel like a toolie, and you just can't find it with agriculture and stuff, you know? But go ahead, what you're
they're
saying.
eliminating the environment.
Right.
Those niches. So as an outdoor educator, I can get people closer to the environment than any other skill ever.
Right.
And I've been on every one. When I was running the outdoor programs, I had 20 certifications that I had to have in order to be a licensed Idaho guide.
Yeah.
So I spent my whole time chasing certifications, but none of those certifications had anything to do with the land.
Right.
They were all some technical thing that took place on the land.
Yeah.
And used the land as a beautiful backdrop.
Yeah.
But had nothing. And I'll criticize the people that are there right now. They don't know. I mean, if I took a group of students backpacking on a basic skills class, on our return to the van, the students would be behind me. Before they could pass me up, they would have to tell me 5 wildflowers and their scientific name.
Yeah.
None of those people know any of those.
Oh yeah, I bet.
So.
Yeah, that's what basically got me from. I always, I like you. I wanted to be a cowboy, and then more of an Indian, like an old West cowboy. Not modern cattle drive, but just going through programs, outdoor jobs, and just feeling like all we're doing is, I don't know, tippy toeing. We had all this bright orange and high vis gear, and then just like not feeling like we knew it. So when I started getting into this, it was all about like, wow, you can really understand the whole natural world by using it, obviously.
Janelle had a canoe class and went over into the park, and Christian was in a canoe, and she said that he got out of the canoe, and the first thing he did was walked over and cut down a pine tree, and she about had a fit, and so I obviously hadn't taught
Christian
him.
Bond, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
I love this
I obviously hadn't taught him the fact that these skills have a place where they can be applied and a place where they can't be applied.
That guy loves cutting down sticks.
It cracked me up. So there are appropriate places where you can do it, and there are inappropriate places you can do it.
Right.
So if I'm in a public display area, I'm taking my nylon gear, and that's how I live. If I'm going out to 95% of the rest of the world, there are skills that I can do out there that aren't going to bother anybody.
Sure.
If I cut some vegetation. So.
Right. And you're doing it right.
That's the other thing too. Is if I interact with the vegetation, it's healthy. It keeps the vegetation healthy. I can point out onion fields down in southern Utah where we harvested every single year, and they're in better shape than when we started harvesting.
Still today? Yeah.
You look out here.
Well, that's the natural way,
You
right?
look out here, and the nez perce used to come around the point out here and harvest camas out here in out by Ledor, or not Ledor, by Kilgore out here. And they said that when they come through, it looked like a tractor had gone through there because they were digging with digging sticks.
Oh wow!
And you would think that they just wiped the place out. Well, that place was so used that next year it came in, boom, it's all back again.
Yeah.
So you have to interact. The environments are not static. You have to interact with them. So.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So that's just two ways of looking at it.
Right. What do you think is your what achievements are you most proud, or projects are you most proud of at this point?
I got a bunch of good kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And a wife that'll tolerate me.
Yeah.
Still, so.
Well, I have a lot of friends that, well, people that want to know that, like how do you
That was a problem.
navigate that?
When I worked for Outward Bound, it was just a wife swapping thing over there. Everybody would, well, if you look at, even in the early days at Rabbitstick, lots of people I'd have to ask them what their name was this year because they were always changing their names, and then they were changing partners at the same time. So, this year I'm Leaf, well, next year I'm Frog. Okay, well, that's nice. So, but at Outward Bound, it was lethal. I mean, it was just like everybody was passing around.
Yeah, and that creates some kind of can destroy the program, huh?
No, it was just the way they did things.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably still do it that way.
Yeah.
But so to deal with that, I had to understand, okay, how am I going to navigate this whole thing and not get caught up in that stuff?
Right.
And we've had our ups and downs, but fortunately, I've had a wife that felt it was important, and we've done it.
And so how have you done it when you're in the backcountry and raising kids?
She's strong.
She's kept here. And your kids hadn't had resentment or anything?
Towards me?
Yeah. Sorry if I'm asking too personal questions.
I think the older ones do. I think the youngest one probably took the brunt of it because that's when I was in the field the most. And so he and I probably had the least strong relationship. And I didn't go to many games and stuff like that. But Bron's the oldest one. He wasn't into sports, so he was with me a lot of the time. So he spent a lot of time in Boulder.
So he came actually on courses when he was little? Yeah, that's cool.
And then he instructed courses. He did a rock rider course with Breck and those guys way back when.
Did you homeschool them?
No.
They were in school?
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't the doting parent, but I was around.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
And you taught them stuff?
Mm-hmm. They're all hard workers. They have good work ethic.
And so Bron does blacksmithing, and he knows a lot of skills. Are your other kids interested in that stuff?
Kyle's been bringing his family to Rabbitstick now. He's the youngest one, so
Okay.
he's got time and energy to do it. So he's been enjoying it. So. And then Lane, all of them are competent.
Yeah.
Lane's a good outdoorsman. So, and has raised his kid that same way. So yeah, they're good.
That's cool. What do you think your legacy will be?
I'm not sure. I would like it to be the fact that if I hadn't been around, I don't know if any of this would be at the level it is right now.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because I think I've had influence on making people talk to each other.
Right.
When I started Rabbitstick, nobody was talking to each other.
Yeah.
It was like everybody had their own little niche markets.
Somewhere
And
different.
their own little skills. And they wouldn't share it with one another.
You're regarding it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was killing the development of skills. And so I broke the mold by saying, okay, let's talk to each other. Let's get together and share this stuff. Because if you're teaching something and I'm going to send my students to you, and you can send your students to me. And I think it changed the whole paradigm about how the field was developing.
Yeah.
So if I did anything, I would like people to recognize that fact, that it probably wouldn't happen if I hadn't done it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to I haven't been part of this too long, and seeing people that have already passed on and stuff, and then seeing other people come, and I do worry, where's this going? And then some gatherings I go to and I go, I don't want to be here. Because I really respect how you're doing the gatherings. I think, and obviously other people do because, Patrick and I don't know, everybody, it seems like so many of them are patterning it after you, keeping politics out, and, it's not a it's not a festival, and all those things I think are like, I don't know. I just think that's, if this thing's gonna last, these kind of stuff, I think that's super important. I'm not explaining, I'm not saying it well.
And I don't know, it's like anything else, like the strong ones will survive. I think we're gonna get to a saturation point.
Yeah.
And some are gonna drop off, some already have.
Gatherings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's other ones, because it's a popular thing, other ones are coming into place. I mean, there's probably been 10 new ones within the last 2 years. So the impact is still increasing, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Well, I have a very, very hard time keeping my tongue when somebody who just comes on the scene starts telling me how I'm supposed to do stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Or they want me to change to meet their agenda.
Right.
And I just
That's fair.
I have a very difficult time with that.
Yeah.
I need to just and to see another program come up and be so popular so fast bothers me after putting in all that work.
Oh, yeah.
To see people come in and we lost money the first 5 years we did it.
You did?
And now you got them, they're making money their first year.
Right.
Which was never my goal.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was to share the skills, but if we weren't making a living at it, we weren't going to be able to do it.
Right.
So it had to pay for itself. But nothing I've ever done has paid the bills solely. I mean, when I was doing Rabbitstick, I was teaching in the university. I was managing the bulletin and primitive technology. I was running boss. I was doing Rabbitstick. I've always had 15 things in the air at one time. We've made a living by diversifying.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So what kind of stuff are you doing now as far as projects and stuff? Because you're not teaching at the school anymore. What kind of stuff's keeping your interest? Is it still like classic camping?
Yeah, I've gone back to that now because it's finally caught on. I mean, if you go online now, there's 4 or 5 guys that are doing videos at least once a week on classic camping, and the definition they're using is our definition.
Oh, really? So when you say our definition, what do you mean?
Steve and mine.
You and Steve's.
Yeah, this idea.
And now that you're writing,
the word wasn't
including...
the primitive technology wasn't in the vernacular
Right.
prior to us using it. Classic camping wasn't in the vernacular prior to us using it.
Right.
So, well, I take that back. The conovers, who we stole it from, they were their Northwoods Ways. Their motto was camping in the classic style. So they weren't doing classic camping as in living history. They were taking the style of the old way, the old days, and putting it in a modern context. Sure. Which is my thing. Yeah. Steve's thing was the living history, the dressing up, the kind of. Mine was the skills of the turn of the century. So we approached it 2 different ways, and I've got an interview coming up with the guy pretty soon to talk about that same thing. So, see, Steve and I we probably had 6 books in the can, stuff we were working on. Yeah. And then I just dropped the ball on it when he died because he was kind of the motivator. And so I just decided to go back after it. And this idea of doing Ben Hunt is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So yeah, I think we've influenced both of those. Yeah.
And so how come Steve's name's in Backwoodsman? His name and your name?
Because a lot of the research we did on that stuff, he was part of the research. Yeah. And I told his wife that if I published, I'd continue to use his name. That's cool. We were partners.
Yeah, that's what I saw it on the shelf and I pulled it open. I thought that was neat.
And the reason it says Steve Watson, David Wescott is, I saw an old interview of Crosby, Stills and Nash, and they said, how can we call it Crosby, Stills and Nash rather than turn it around and said, because it sounds better that way.
Oh, yeah.
So Watts and Wescott as opposed to Wescott and Watts.
Sure.
Just left it that way.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, that's all I got to say. I don't know.
That was easy.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for letting me come out here.
Mm-hmm.